After a weekend-long family gathering, I returned to my small apartment in Seattle, completely exhausted. Everything seemed normal. At least until I opened my banking app to transfer money for the electric bill. My eyes went blurry at the number on the screen. Basha-san. Wushar. I checked it 3 times. Then again. Certain it wasn't a glitch, or my tired eyes playing tricks. Just 2 days ago, I had over $9. Zero in that account. I felt the blood drained from my body. My heart pounded like someone was knocking from inside my chest with shaking hands. I immediately called the bank. After a few security questions, the rep said the transactions were made from a device previously logged in the same IP address as a personal computer. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and drove straight back to my mom's house. The same place that just hosted our biggest family gathering of the year. I still couldn't shake the images of everyone hugging and laughing from my mind. And yet, just hours later, I stood there again, in the old kitchen I grew up in, reaching for a glass of water from the cupboard, my heart still reeling from shock. "You're back already." My sister Amanda's voice floated in from the living room, casual and carefree, like nothing had happened. She sat on the couch with her legs crossed, holding a glass of red wine, not the slightest hint of concern on her face. I just checked my account. I tried to keep my voice steady, but the tightness in my throat betrayed me. Nathan, my brother-in-law, walked out from the kitchen, holding a soda can. He leaned against the fridge, looking half amused. Half dismissiva. "Oh. That." Nathan smirked. "We needed that money more than you did." Alisa. It hit me like a slap across the face. I froze, stunned, unable to form a single word. Amanda chuckled softly, shrugging like I was overreacting. "Don't be so dramatic," she said. "You've got a good job. No debt. No kids. You live alone." I turned to my mom. She was sitting in the corner knitting, her expression as calm as ever. "Mom, did you know about this?" she sighed, not looking up. Her voice was gentle, like I'd just complained about the soup being too salty. "You're always so sensitive. You have more. What's wrong with helping a little?" I turned to my dad, who was glued to his phone. He mumbled without looking up. "Don't use harsh words. It's family business." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "But how did you even get into my banking info?" Amanda shrugged. "I used Mom's computer and saw your account was still logged in. If you didn't log out?" She said it like I was the one at fault, like what they did was perfectly justified. My hands clenched, nails digging into my palms. My heart was racing. Nathan shrugged. "Like this was all no big deal. It's not like we bought luxury stuff. Rent groceries just to survive. Otherwise we'd be starving." I looked at them. All of them. Not one apology. Not one guilty. Look, not even a proper explanation. "What did I do to deserve this?" I whispered, though no one seemed to care. Amanda tossed her hair back and mumbled, "You can earn it back. Don't be so dramatic." I slowly picked up my purse. No one stopped me. No one asked if I was okay. My mom only said out of habit, "Don't forget Sunday dinner." I walked to the door, heart pounding, empty inside. But before I left, I paused at the doorway, hand on the knob, then looked back. "If you think I'm just going to let this go, wait and see what happens next." Amanda giggled. "Oh, please. You're being so theatrical. Honestly, Alyssa, we needed that money more than you. Don't be selfish. I didn't respond. Outside, it had started to rain, and inside me, another storm was quietly building. I drove through the rain, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The traffic light ahead was red, but my mind was spinning with every cold word I'd just heard. We needed that money more than you. No remorse. No apology. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I didn't want to go home yet. I needed air. So I pulled into the parking lot near Green Lake Park, where I usually jog on Saturday mornings. I turned off the engine, sat in silence, and reopened the banking app. That number was still there, just as shameless and cold as Amanda's face. I couldn't say I was completely surprised. I had just hoped when I was 27. I got hired as a marketing manager at a major pharmaceutical company. While I was still adjusting to the job and new life, Amanda called. Hey. My phone got cut off. Can you spot me some cash? I didn't think twice. They were family. Right. Then came Nathan. Unemployed for nearly 6 months. Just need a few hundred to get by until I find something. He said, I stayed quiet 1 year for Haley's birthday. Amanda sent me a suggested gift list. The cheapest item was over $200. I wanted to say no. But then my mom called. Her voice sweet. You're not getting anything for your niece. She's so excited. You're better off than the rest of us. And just like that, I became the first person they called for money troubles. Amanda got a new car. I chipped in on the down payment. Nathan lost his wallet. I wired money that night. Mom's electric bill, overdue. I dipped into savings every time. All they had to say was, you're the most stable one in the family. They never once asked, are you doing okay? Never stopped to think. I had days where I counted every dollar, skipped vacations, or put off buying things for myself. A few months ago, I turned down a vacation with my best friend because I used that money to help Nathan with rent. Amanda, they said it like a compliment. But now I realize it wasn't gratitude. It was an unspoken declaration. It's your job. The rain kept falling. I turned on the radio, hoping the noise would calm the ache in my chest. But nothing could soothe the feeling of being seen as a tool. Not a daughter. Not a sister. Just a credit card with a heartbeat. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Amanda said you're upset about the money. Don't make a big deal. Sweetheart, we're family. Family. Why did that word feel so heavy now? I used to think if I just stayed patient, generous enough, they would realize. Maybe say thank you. Or at least ask how I was. But they never did. Because in their eyes, I didn't need help. And the one who doesn't need help is expected to help everyone else. I took a deep breath and opened my notes app. Every payment I ever made. Every late night call. Every time I denied myself for them. I started writing it all down. Not to ask for it back, but so I'd never forget. Never let myself be put in that position again. The rain began to ease. Pale sunlight peeks through the gray clouds. I sat up straight, hands on the wheel. This time, I wasn't looking back. That night, I returned to my apartment, still reeling from Nathan's words echoing in my mind. We needed that money more than you. No apology. No explanation. Just pure, unbelievable entitlement. But what truly kept me up wasn't the lost money. It was the family's complete indifference in the face of it. I couldn't let it go. And I didn't plan to. The next morning, I called the bank and requested a full transaction report from the past 10 days. The file was 17 pages long. I printed it out and marked every suspicious charge in red. One anonymous transaction caught my eye. Almost $2. $800 from an IP address that matched my mom's house. Yes, I'd used a computer there before, but never logged into my bank account and just left it open. I had only checked email in my calendar. Someone in that house had accessed it. I remembered my info and waited for the right moment. That weekend, I returned to Mom's house, like it was a casual visit. The roast smelled the same as always, but the air was thick with tension. Amanda sat at the head of the table, avoiding my eyes. Nathan was overly relaxed, pouring lemonade like there wasn't a fire burning under the surface. I didn't waste time. I reviewed all my transactions, I said, placing the paperwork on the table. My account was accessed from Mom's computer. I was here that day. Yes, but I didn't log into my bank. So who took the info? No one answered. My mom kept her head down, picking at her salad like I just asked about the weather. Dad sat in silence behind his open newspaper. Only Amanda spoke, her voice small but laced with sarcasm. You left it logged in. It's not like we hacked into anything. I looked straight at her. So you admit it? Amanda shrugged. I just saw it open. You didn't lock it. And it's not like it's the first time you helped. I didn't agree to this time. Nathan set his glass down with a soft clink. You're always so dramatic. This isn't stealing. It's helping each other. It's family. No, I said firmly. Helping is when someone asks and the other agrees. This was taking without asking. My mom finally looked up, her voice gentle like she was explaining something to a stubborn child. Aliza, you live alone. Have a good job. No burdens. Amanda's raising a child. Nathan, still figuring things out. Family is about sharing, and sharing means quietly draining my entire savings. My voice began to tremble, not from anger, but from pain. My dad folded his newspaper and looked up, visibly annoyed. Don't be so harsh. You've always been the strongest one in this family. You know no one else could handle it. So everyone trusted you, trusted me. I let out a dry laugh. Stealing personal information and emptying my account. That's what you call trust. Why not just call it what it is? Taking advantage. Amanda slammed her hand on the table. The first time she lost her cool. We didn't splurge on anything. It was for rent. Medication for Haley. Car repère. I'm exhausted. You're exhausted. What about me? I looked at each person in that room. The people I once called family. I was exhausted. Too. When I worked 60 hours a week to pay off your debt. When I canceled my vacation, just to keep Nathan from getting evicted. When I ate instant noodles for 3 weeks to help Mom pay the utility bill. I'd been tired for a long time, but I never complained because I thought I was doing the right thing. But clearly, all I did was enable everyone's selfishness. No one said a word. Only the ticking of the kitchen clock filled the silence. I stood up, grabbed the folder and my purse. Before leaving the room, I paused and looked at Mom. If this is how you treat the only person who never asked for a single cent, I don't be surprised when I start taking back what I deserve. Nathan let out a mocking laugh. What are you going to do? Alyssa, call the cops. I looked him straight in the eye. My gaze steady. Just wait and see. Then I walked out of the house. I once called home for the first time without a trace of regret. Only a rising sense of resolve in my chest. I got home just as dusk settled over Seattle. The air felt thicker than usual. Heavy with the fury still brewing inside me, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled out a file folder. I had kept receipts, messages, transfers, email confirmations, even screenshots from years ago. Not because I was paranoid, but because I knew someday my quiet sacrifices would need proof. I began organizing everything from the very first payment, end of Leo, 50 for Amanda's phone bill 3 years ago, to the biggest one, $3. 200 wired to Nathan for an urgent issue. I had full bank statements, email confirmations over 3 nights. I built a spreadsheet categorizing each expense. I color-coded everything green for medical, yellow for living expenses, red for the ones with no justification, like the $1, $350 Nathan spent on a gaming console last Black Friday. I remembered it clearly because I had to skip a winter trip with coworkers just to make my insurance payment. On Monday morning, I went to the Financial Crimes Division downtown, bringing all the printed documents, a USB with the spreadsheet, and a completed complaint form. A young officer named Harper took my case. She flipped through each page, nodding as she read, "We'll begin a preliminary investigation under financial fraud and unauthorized access to personal information. Do you have names of the individuals involved?" "I do," I said, handing her the list. "Amanda Walker, Nathan Walker, Donna Grant, my mother, Paul Grant, my father." I left the precinct under gray skies, but with a flicker of light inside me. Not because I wanted them punished, but because I finally stopped staying silent. 2 weeks later, on a Thursday afternoon, I was in a Zoom meeting when an unknown number called. I muted the call and stepped onto my balcony to answer. It was Harper. "Miss Alyssa, we've completed the preliminary investigation. We have sufficient grounds to move forward. The investigative unit will visit the individuals' residences today." I froze. It wasn't satisfaction. I felt more like release. After all these years, someone finally saw what I had endured that night while I was preparing dinner. My phone rang nonstop. First Mom, then Amanda, then Nathan. I didn't pick up. The texts started pouring in after. "Call your mother now." "What are you doing?" "Eliza, did you really call the police?" I didn't respond to any of them. An hour later, I got a text from an old neighbor. "There are 3 people in jackets labeled Financial Crimes Unit outside Donna's house. They asked about you too." The next day, I arrived at work early. As I stepped into the elevator, I caught a few curious stares from coworkers. Then my manager approached me. "We received a call from a local reporter asking to verify a financial investigation linked to your name," he said, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "We didn't confirm anything, but if you need time, just say the word." I smiled softly. "It's okay. I'm doing the right thing." That evening, I sat by my window watching the lights glow from the surrounding apartments. Amanda's words still echoed in my head. "I swear this family only survives because of you." Yes, they survived because of me. But they never saw me as a person. Just a wallet. A tool. And now that tool had said enough, I opened my journal and wrote one line. "I am not the family bank. I am Alyssa." For the first time, I saw my name on a page, not tied to a bill or a money transfer. Just my name. A person, and freedom finally within reach. The first message came that Monday morning as I was getting ready for work. My phone's screen lit up with a familiar line. "Call me Mom." I didn't open it. An hour later, as I poured coffee, her voicemail came through. "Alisa, this is going too far. I know there's been misunderstanding, but you don't have to take it this far. Can you please call me back?" I set the mug down, a chill running through me. Her voice was the same. Soft, gentle, as if by noon Amanda sent a long text. "My bank account is frozen. I can't pay Haley's tuition. I don't know what to do. You win." "Okay. Are you happy now?" That last sentence made my skin crawl as if this was a game. I started as if they were just unwilling players dragged into it. But I knew the truth. I wasn't trying to win. I was just done, enduring. The next day, Harper called with an update. "Alyssa, we've confirmed the amount withdrawn and misused. Amanda is now under investigation for unauthorized transfers. Nathan is implicated in withdrawing funds from an unapproved device. And your parents used part of the money for illegal mortgage payments, which could be subject to recovery." Oh, I didn't know how to feel. Part of me hurt. Not because of the consequences they now faced, but because they still didn't understand how it ever came to this. That night, Nathan called repeatedly. I blocked his number. Less than 10 minutes later, I got an email from an unfamiliar address. "Alyssa, please. I've been suspended from work. They're investigating my accounts. I can't lose everything over one mistake. Can't you say something to help me?" The arrogance. The mockery. The laughter from before. Gone. Replaced by thinly veiled panic. But I didn't flinch. Thursday morning, I got a message from my dad. He rarely reached out. So, even one line made me pause. The bank sent a foreclosure warning. If we don't pay in 30 days, we lose the house. I read it over and over. No apology. No admission. Just a cold statement and a faint hope that, like always, I would step in to fix it. I didn't reply. But that night, standing by my window watching the streetlights spill across the glass, I thought of all the times I skipped lunch to wire Mom money on time. The dates I canceled because Amanda called me in tears. I'd given not just my money, but my peace. This time I wasn't going back. That weekend, I drove toward the Edmonds shoreline, a place where Dad and I used to go fishing every summer when I was little. No one knew where I was. No one asked how I was doing. The same people who called me their lifeline now only reached out to salvage the damage they caused. Mid-afternoon, my phone lit up again. A message from Mom. "Melissa, I'm begging you. I know I was wrong. But if we lose the house, I don't know how I'll survive. Please don't abandon me." I stared at the screen for a long time. That message made my chest tighten. But not from guilt. From the realization that even now she was thinking about the house. Not me. No one asked if I was okay. I set my phone down and stepped onto the sand, letting the ocean breeze blow away. The heaviness in my chest. I knew I had entered the hardest part. The part where they call me cruel, ungrateful, even destructive. But also the part where I was no longer expected to carry what was never mine to hold. I looked out at the vast water for the first time in years. I wasn't thinking about bills, money requests, or late-night calls. I was thinking about me and the peace I was finally starting to feel, piece by piece. 3 weeks later, I filed for an extended leave of absence without telling anyone. I packed everything neatly into a rented car and left Seattle on a gloomy Wednesday morning. Driving across the state like I was shedding the old skin of a woman smothered by unreasonable expectations, I arrived in Boulder, Colorado, a small town I had passed through years ago on a work trip. Back then, I only had a few hours to wander around the downtown area, sip coffee in a cozy cafe with soft jazz and warm yellow lights. But the calm I felt that day stuck with me. Now it became the place I chose to begin again. I rented a small studio apartment overlooking the mountains. White walls, big windows, catching the morning light. Within days, I bought a new desk, filled vases with fresh flowers, and for the first time in years, I didn't have to clear space for someone else's needs. I changed my number. I told my company I'd be working remotely for an indefinite period. And strangely enough, once I stopped being drained by my family, my energy returned. I slept better, ate regularly, and when I sat at my desk, my mind felt clearer than ever. Just 2 weeks after settling in Boulder, my boss, Julian, called. "Lisa, I just reviewed your new strategy plan. It's brilliant. Have you considered taking over as regional coordinator for the entire West Coast?" I paused for a moment. A year ago, if I had heard those words, I probably would have said no, because I still had to worry about Mom, about Amanda, about Nathan. But now I looked out the window where sunlight was sparkling through the pine trees and answered firmly, "I'm ready." Julian chuckled. "I knew you'd be the first person to come to mind. Congratulations, Aliza." When the call ended, I made myself a cup of tea, curled up in a knit blanket on the balcony, and let the breeze run gently through my hair. I had done it. I had pulled myself out of that cycle. Or the cycle where I was always the one giving, and no one ever asked, "Are you okay?" No more late-night messages. No more desperate calls like it's just a loan. "I'll pay you back by the end of the month." No more checking my bank account every morning in quiet panic. Now, every message I received was from people who truly cared. Coworkers, old friends, or a few new ones I'd met through yoga classes in Boulder. No one asked for money. They simply asked, "How are you feeling today?" or "Want to grab dinner tonight?" I hadn't just found freedom. I had found myself again. One afternoon I went back to the coffee shop from years ago. Sitting at the same table by the window, the shop owner still remembered me faintly. "You've been here before, haven't you? Weren't you the one who asked about the jazz track I was playing that day?" I laughed. "That was me. And now I live here." He pointed outside the window. "This place heals a lot of people." I nodded. There was nothing more that needed to be said. That night I wrote in my journal, "I spent my youth guarding a door for a family that never wanted to come in to see me, only to take what was inside. Now I've locked that door, and I'm keeping the key for myself." This new life wasn't loud. There were no cheers. But it was quiet. And to me, that was the most luxurious thing I had ever owned. Didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if Amanda might call one day, her voice trembling. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. Not because I didn't love them, but because I'd learned to love myself first. One crisp fall morning, as I watered the plants on my balcony, my phone pinged with a new email. I didn't look right away, but a few minutes later, sipping my tea, I opened my inbox and paused at an unfamiliar name, Melanie Carter. It took me a few seconds to place her. Melanie was Amanda's cousin-in-law. Someone I had only seen briefly at a couple family gatherings. A quiet girl who always stayed in the background and never spoke up. I hadn't even known she had my email. The subject line read, "Thank you, Alyssa. Curious." I opened it. "You probably don't remember me well. I'm Melanie, and Grace's daughter. Amanda once asked me to babysit Haley one summer, and you drove me home after Haley's birthday party. I stayed silent for years, thinking I didn't have the right to speak up, but after learning what you did, how you stood up, how you drew a line, I couldn't not send this message." I sat frozen. Every word she wrote felt like a drop, falling into the still pond inside me. I was stuck in a similar cycle. My family always said I was luckier, so I had to give more. I worked 3 jobs at once and still had to send money home for my mom, for my brother. And when I tried to say no, they called me ungrateful and selfish. But after hearing what you did, how you chose yourself, it felt like someone lit a path I didn't know existed. You helped me realize that saying no isn't cruel. It's self-protection. It's preserving the most precious thing, yourself. I sat there quietly, hands wrapped around a now cold cup of tea. Outside, the wind rustled golden maple leaves, sending a few tumbling gently to the ground. But inside me, something had quietly begun to bloom. It wasn't pride. It wasn't vindication. It was the feeling of being seen, of being understood. Melanie wasn't the first person to say something like this. A few weeks earlier, an old college friend had texted me after reading a few lines I shared on my personal blog. "I used to think you were just really strong, like you didn't need anyone. But now I get it. You were so strong that everyone assumed you'd be fine no matter what." I had read that line over and over again because for years I never asked to be heard. I stayed quiet, held it all in. But no one had ever taught me that kindness doesn't mean letting people cross your boundaries. That night, I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and typed a reply to Melanie. I never imagined what I did would inspire someone like that. "Thank you for having the courage to share. I know that's not easy. But I want you to remember you're not alone. You're not selfish. You're just learning to love yourself the right way. And there's nothing wrong with that." I hit send. And in that moment, something became crystal clear. I used to think I had lost my family. But the truth was, I was redefining it from people who love without conditions, who give without expectation, and who respect others as full human beings. The next morning, when I pulled back the curtains, sunlight poured into the room like a gentle blessing. I took a deep breath, feeling nothing heavy on my chest anymore. I was no longer the old Alyssa, the girl who always stepped aside, who always stayed quiet for fear of upsetting others. Now I was Alyssa, who knew how to say enough, who knew when to walk away, when someone didn't value her. And the most beautiful part, I wasn't alone because out there somewhere, people like Melanie were finding the courage to step out of the shadows. And if my journey could light even a small part of their path, then every bit of pain I had endured was worth it. On Sunday afternoon, I strolled down the cobblestone path that led to the nearby park, where the maple trees were changing leaf by leaf, from green to gold to fiery red. A little girl rode her bike, hair flying in the wind while her mother ran behind her, laughing and calling, "Slow down, sweetheart." I paused for a moment, holding a paper cup of coffee, watching them like a scene from a living painting. That image stirred something in me, something I had lost in recent years, a sense of lightness, I used to think I had to do everything to make my family proud. I worked tirelessly, saved every penny, gave up vacations, small dreams, just to earn a good daughter label or a nod of approval from my mother. But they never stopped to ask. Was I tired? Did I need someone to listen? They just needed me to be strong. And when I stopped, when I stood up and said no, they called me ungrateful. I used to fear that I feared being seen as selfish, feared losing the blood ties I fought so hard to preserve. But now that the dust had settled, now that the midnight calls and circular blame had gone quiet, I realized something so simple. It hurt. I didn't lose my family. I had just found myself and that person, the Alyssa I am today, no longer lives to please anyone but herself. I started doing the little things I once put off. I learned how to cook risotto, my favorite dish that I never had time for. I bought a bright red dress, the kind I used to think was too much for the office. I signed up for a Saturday pottery class just because the feeling of clay in my hands made me feel alive. I reorganized my apartment, hung a giant abstract painting in the living room, not because it matched. One day I received a postcard from Kelly, a former coworker who had moved to Italy. On the back, in neat handwriting, it read, "You showed me what it means to set boundaries without guilt because of you. I finally had the courage to move to Rome, something I dreamed of since I was 20, but never dared to do. Thank you, Elisa." I placed the postcard on my desk among the small things that carried big meaning. A stone I picked up on my first hike in Colorado, a jar of dried flowers, and the leather journal. I was still writing in. They were all tiny pieces of me and Elisa, who no longer lived to prove anything to anyone. I no longer hoped for my family to understand. I didn't wait for an apology call from Amanda or a surprise message from my mom. Maybe one day, they'd look back and understand. Or maybe not. And either way, that's okay. I used to think love meant holding on tightly. Now, I know sometimes love means letting go. Letting yourself and others be accountable for their own choices. When you stop trying to be so kind that you erase your own limits, you'll realize the people who truly value you will never ask you to burn out for them. I still remember a quote from some writer, "You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm." And when I stopped burning for their expectations, I realized that the warmest light doesn't come from sacrifice. It comes from the peace of living, true to who you are. On that leaf-strewn path, I walked slowly. No rush. No escape. Nope. Alice's story is a powerful reminder that you are not obligated to sacrifice yourself just to preserve a relationship labeled family when it lacks respect. When you set boundaries and choose yourself, you're not being selfish. You're living truthfully. Not everyone will understand that. But the peace you find will be worth it. Because sometimes walking away from family isn't a loss. It's the first step toward reclaiming your true self and your real worth. What do you think about Alice's choice? Was she right to put herself before family obligations? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt, real-life stories. I sat in my usual corner at the brunch spot my family frequented every weekend. The coffee in front of me had gone cold, but I kept stirring it slowly. An old habit that helped me stay calm. No one paid attention to me because, as always, the spotlight belonged to my sister Vivian. She sat with her legs crossed. Morning sunlight, catching the sparkle of the diamond ring on her hand. "Your old job really was a snooze fest." She laughed, her voice loud enough to echo through the cafe. It's kind of hilarious that someone in their 30s still doesn't have a real job. I heard every word, every pause in her sentence. No one else laughed. Just Vivian. The only one amused by her own joke. I didn't look at her. I just pressed my lips together and kept stirring my cold coffee. My mother awkwardly murmured, "Vivian, don't be like that." But my sister only shrugged. To her, silence was proof of failure. My father tried to steer the conversation elsewhere. Something about the eggs Benedict being a little too salty. But Vivian's smirk lingered like a hook, waiting for a reaction. I said nothing. I was never the talkative one at family gatherings. And somehow that made them assume I had nothing worth saying. But the truth was, ever since I chose to live behind the scenes, silence had become the space where I built an entire world. One none of them could imagine. I remember exactly when I first realized that some of the greatest things didn't need to be shown off. I was 27, sitting beside Sam, my best friend from college, as we typed the first lines of code for what would later become the core of an intelligent data analytics system used by banks, hospitals, and even government agencies. Now, at 33, I'm the co-founder of Dataloom, a tech company valued at over $80. Ling. But no one in my family knows I never appeared on the official website. In interviews, Sam was the face of the company and me. I chose to stay behind the spotlight. My name only appeared on internal documents, investor agreements, and Vivian's pay stubs. Funny, isn't it? The sister who never hesitated to mock my quietness is now applying to the company I helped build, completely unaware that the person reviewing her application is the facilier she's mocked for years. I watched her chatter on bragging about the now defunct accounting firm she worked for. But it's all good. She waved it off. I'm a problem solver. I'm targeting a new company. Something called Dataloom. Heard they're hiring. My heart skipped a beat for the first time during the meal. I looked up, then quickly looked back down, careful to keep the flicker in my eyes unnoticed. She kept going. I already applied. If they bring me in, I'll handle their budget better than anyone there. If they pass me up, it's their loss. I bit my tongue to keep from laughing. That sentence, bold and smug, was a carbon copy of the lines she used to throw at me, claiming I'd never get anywhere, hiding in the shadows. And maybe she'll never realize it. But in that very shadow, I built an empire. One she's now about to walk into, under my leadership. Still, I chose to remain silent. Not out of fear, but because I knew the truth would speak for itself. I remember my 12th birthday vividly. While everyone sang happy birthday, Vivian burst out of the living room holding a giant gold trophy. Our baby just won the state dance competition. My mom beamed, wrapping her arms around Vivian. I stood by my cake, candles flickering in front of me. But no one asked what I wished for, and I didn't even bother blowing them out. Vivian was always like that, bright, loud, always giving people something to clap for me. I quietly gathered my gifts, went to my room, opened the old laptop Dad gave me the year before, and kept building my first data model. Even as a child, I loved what others found boring. I liked taking toys apart to see how they worked. I loved figuring out why a video game ran so smoothly. I loved the feeling of writing a block of code and watching it work flawlessly. My mom used to say, "Eleanor can sit for hours and you won't hear a sound." Dad used to joke, "We've got a firework and a flashlight in this house. Guess which is which?" No guessing needed. Vivian was the firework. I was the flashlight. Steady but overlooked. As we grew older, the gap between us widened. Vivian studied art, made a few appearances on local television thanks to her dramatic performances. I studied computer science at a tech institute. No one in the family remembers the school's name. When I graduated, they forgot the date entirely. They were too busy planning Vivian's fashion line lunch. I don't blame them. Sometimes I thought maybe I just wasn't interesting enough. But silence slowly became the space where I found my value. When Sam and I started Dataloom, all we had were 2 beat-up laptops and a dream to build a flexible analytics system that could predict user behavior in real time. Sam was the talker. He pitched to investors, did press interviews, ran meetings. I was the one backstage writing every line of code, fixing every bug. A year later, a major bank signed a trial contract. 2 years in, our system was integrated into finance, healthcare, and risk analysis platforms. By year 3, Dataloom was valued at $83. Ling. 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 I held 49% of the shares. But ask anyone, they'd only know Sam Fletcher. As for Eleanor Green, never featured in a headline, and that was how I wanted it. I didn't care for hollow handshakes, flashing cameras, or whispers behind my back. I wanted to work, to build, to help people make better decisions with what I created. As for Vivian, after her own fashion startup failed due to financial mismanagement, she went back to accounting at a small firm. Then came layoffs. Now she's pinning her hopes on a new opportunity. She has no idea. I created. I don't know if she'll ever see me as an equal to Vivian. I'll always be the little sister with her head in the clouds and a bunch of old laptops. But she's about to walk into a space where every wall, every budget model, every analytics tool was designed by me. And what I wonder most is this. When she sees my name, Eleanor Green, at the bottom corner of her paycheck or the next budget draft, will she recognize it? Or will she still believe I'm just a faded extra in the dazzling world she chases? A part of me hopes she never finds out. Another part wants to see her face. When the truth finally hits, I don't need her admiration. I just want her to stop looking down on me. That night, back in my quiet apartment on the 18th floor, Seattle sky was wrapped in a soft mist like a velvet curtain after a show. I pulled out my laptop, logged into Dataloom's internal system, thousands of lines of code and reports. I knew by heart. The first notification popped up from HR. Recommended candidate, Vivian Green. I leaned back in my chair, eyes settling on the file on screen. I had expected this moment. But still, my heart paused for a beat. Her smiling photo, dressed in a beige blazer, stood out on the application form. I skimmed through her experience skills and the internal reviewer's note. Confident de mineur. Strong communicator. Well suited for the budget analyst role. Recommend for next round interview. I didn't type a word. Just clicked the 3 dots in the corner. A window appeared. Forward code. Copy. I clicked approve. She got the job. No one at the company, except Sam, knew I was a co-founder. From day one, we agreed to use only Sam's name on all media and public documents. I didn't want my image floating around the internet. I'd seen too many people lose their personal lives chasing fame. I didn't need praise. I needed freedom. So within Data Gloom, I was simply Eleanor, the senior technical advisor who usually worked remotely, I only came into the office once a week after 6 p.m. The rest of the time, I led projects, approved spending, and mapped out strategies all from behind the scenes. Sam was the one in front of cameras, shaking hands with investors and speaking at tech conferences. He always respected my choice, never once revealing my identity to employees or the press. I used to wonder if that decision was the right one. But now, watching Vivian step into the world I built with my own hands, I was certain staying silent was the only way to make this moment interesting. On her first day at work, I stayed home just as scheduled. But I turned on the internal camera system, something very few people knew. I designed. From a low-angle view in the shared kitchen on the 9th floor, I saw her standing near the espresso machine, eyes wide with surprise as she looked at the digital bulletin board displaying the company's ongoing projects. "This is the new company that hired me," she told a colleague proudly. "Where it is? The two founders are super private. No one's ever seen the other one. Might just be a legal placeholder." I chuckled softly. It wasn't the first time I'd heard someone question the existence of the second co-founder. That afternoon, Sam video called me. "She's off to a decent start," he said, sipping coffee, confident, maybe a bit showy, but competent. "Are you sure about this? She still has no idea who you are." "Eleanor, for now, let's keep it that way," I replied. "Just don't slip. If she's good, this is a great opportunity. If she's not, the truth will come out faster." This wasn't about revenge. I didn't want her to fail. Nor did I seek payback. I just wanted to know, how would Vivian behave when no one recognized her? When there was no spotlight, no audience clapping. A week passed. Then two. Each time I came into the office after hours, she had already left. I kept my routine, approving budgets at night, reviewing HR files in the silence of empty halls and idle elevators, until one day, I was in the basement server room, checking the security system, when I heard high heels echoing in the hallway. I stepped out, and there she was, frozen in the doorway. "Eleanor," she asked, startled and suspicious. I nodded calmly. How she squinted. "What are you doing down here? Only senior management has access to this area." I smiled. "Well, I guess I have special access." She tilted her head about to say something when Sam stepped out from the adjacent room, holding a folder. "Hey, Eleanor, could you take a look at the new AI deployment plan? Needs you to sign off by Friday." I took the file and looked back at Vivian. Her eyes froze. There was no need for words. I knew in that moment the seed of doubt had been planted. And now I'd see what she finally see me, or still view me as the harmless shadow she always believed I was. That morning, Seattle had a light drizzle. I had just signed off on the latest quarterly report when my phone rang. It was Sam. "Eleanor, something funny just happened. I think Vivian's starting to get curious," he said with a hint of amusement. I looked up at my screen. A new email from accounting popped up. NSW's signature found in internal budget file. Please confirm approving authority. My heart slowed. It was time. Nearly 2 months had passed since Vivian officially joined Dataloom as a budget analyst. In that time, she had begun earning favor in a few departments thanks to her confidence and persuasive skills. I had watched from afar, quietly approving her proposals and seeing nothing. But she had started noticing details during one budget approval for marketing. Vivian stumbled upon a file signed with an e-signature, clearly labeled Eleanor Green. Alongside it was the co-founder's ID code. I knew she wouldn't let that go. The next morning, I overheard a snippet of conversation in the cafe downstairs. A young colleague whispered to Vivian, "Who's this nice person anyway? Like a ghost in the system. Never seen them. But they sign off on everything big." Vivian smirked. "Probably just a legal figurehead. I don't trust names without faces behind a wooden partition." I tightened my grip on my coffee cup. Don't trust. She'd learned soon enough. 3 days later, she walked straight into accounting and requested access to the full budget record for the most recent quarter. With her clearance, she opened file after file until she reached the one where my name appeared again and again. Beside documents outlining data looms, financial core, not just signatures, boot dates, file IDs, legal assessments. Every key piece carried my name. The same sister who believed I lived off the family's kindness was now staring at proof that I wasn't just any employee. I was the one who had approved her paycheck, the one behind the very reports she worked with every day. That afternoon, I got a system alert, internal access request from account Vivian Green, tagged Dataloom founding records. She had reached the master file. I pictured her sitting there. Soft blue light illuminating her face as she saw the founding documents for the first time. Eleanor Green and Samuel Fletcher. 50/50 ownership role description. Chief Technical Architect. Miss Green. Her heart must have clenched. I knew her when she's shocked. She doesn't scream or cause a scene. She goes silent. But her eyes blazed. Then she starts trying to prove this can't be real. That same afternoon, I arrived at the office earlier than usual. I wanted to see her reaction with my own eyes. Sure enough, when I entered the pantry, I saw Vivian standing alone, gripping the edge of the counter, staring at a printed page. I approached gently. "You okay?" She turned, eyes locked on mine, furious and confused. "Eleanor," she said, voice tight. "You're the co-founder." I didn't answer immediately. I just nodded. "How long?" she asked. "Since the beginning," I replied calmly. "Sam and I started this company in a tiny room near Capitol Hill. Back when you thought I was unemployed." Vivian laughed. Not mockingly, but bitterly. Half disbelief, half self-directed. Irony. "So all this time you were signing my paycheck, I worked under you." I nodded again. Not out of pride. "Vivian, just doing my job. You're capable. So I approved your promotion. If you weren't, I'd have done the opposite." She fell silent, eyes dropping to the floor. I pulled a sheet from my pocket. A budget plan for an upcoming initiative on tech education for underprivileged kids. "We're launching this soon. If you're interested, I think you'd be a great fit." She didn't take the paper, but her eyes changed. Something had shifted. I turned to leave, not pushing her. She'd need time. But for the first time in years, I saw in her eyes not scorn. "But assez la question. How many times have I misjudged my little sister?" The 5-year Dataloom anniversary gala was held in a glass building by Lake Union, where chandelier light danced like ripples across the floor. I stood in the guest dressing room, staring into the mirror. A long black dress, minimalist but elegant, fits snugly against a frame worn from years of all-nighters. My hair was pinned neatly, lips brushed with soft pink. I didn't want to stand out, but it wasn't about what I wanted anymore. Sam knocked. Peeking in. "Ready." Eleanor, I swallowed hard. Not really. But I guess no one's ever truly ready to step out of the dark. He laughed. You're not stepping out. You're stepping up. We walked onto the stage from the wings as the lights dimmed. The MC had just finished. And now, please welcome the two co-founders of Data Loom, Samuel Fletcher and Eleanor Green. Applause erupted. Loud. Clear. Electric. Every eye turned toward me as I stepped into the light for the first time officially. And without a mask, I smiled quietly, but with purpose. And then I saw Vivian. She stood at the back of the room, one hand clutching a champagne glass she hadn't touched. Her face stunning. Her world flipped upside down. I knew that feeling. I'd lived it. On the day we landed our first $1 million investment, that moment when something no one thought was real becomes undeniable. Sam spoke first. He shared our journey from his mom's garage to Data Loom's current HQ about server crashes at 2 a.m. Deadlines that left us passed out on keyboards. When he passed the mic to me, the room fell silent. I took a deep breath. Hi everyone, I'm Eleanor Green, and I guess for many of you, this is the first time you've actually seen me. A gentle wave of laughter rolled through the crowd. It wasn't mocking. It was warm surprise. I continued, I'm not great at public speaking, and I never imagined I'd be up here. But 5 years ago, Sam and I had two things, an idea and a belief that technology could be built on trust. I glanced down at the audience. Vivian was still standing there, no longer holding her drink. Her eyes were fixed on me, as if trying to make sense of a stranger wearing the face of someone she once knew. I know I'm not the public face of this company. I went on. And that was entirely my choice. But today I felt I owed you my presence. Not for fame, but out of gratitude. Applause rose again. I nodded in thanks, then stepped back to let the mic close the ceremony. As the lights shifted to dinner, I made my way toward the buffet, looking for a quiet corner. But with every step, someone stopped me to chat. We thought you were a legend. One software engineer laughed. Didn't think you actually existed. I smiled, made a few polite replies, but my mind kept drifting back to Vivian. I glanced toward the pillar where she'd stood empty. She had left, and I didn't know when she'd gone or how much of my speech she'd heard. But I felt something, an empty space quietly opening inside me, where there should have been a warm look from someone close. That night, back in my apartment, I kicked off my shoes and sank into the sofa. My phone lit up with dozens of congratulatory messages from colleagues, partners, even my parents. We're so proud of you. Sweetheart. Words can't describe it. But nothing from Vivian. I replayed the live stream of the event on the company website, skipped ahead to my speech, then hit pause. I didn't need to watch it again. I just wanted to know one thing. In that moment, under the spotlight, what did Vivian see? A stranger or the little sister she once believed would never amount to anything? 2 days after the gala, I arrived at the office earlier than usual. Not for a meeting or to sign off on documents, just to finish something personal. I opened the drawer in the 10th floor conference room and pulled out a small walnut box I'd kept since college. Inside, I placed a navy linen-covered notebook, a black ink pen, and a handwritten card. It took me over an hour to write just a few lines. Not fancy, not poetic, just honest. Vivian, thank you for your efforts at Data Loom. You're truly capable. And I believe you'll go far. I'm proud to work with you. Even if we began in silence. Eleanor. I folded the card, tucked it inside the notebook, and handed it to the internal delivery assistant with a quiet instruction. Please give this to Vivian Green. No. Send her name. I wasn't expecting a reply. The gift wasn't an olive branch. It was just an open door. Quiet and without pressure so she could walk through if she chose to. The rest of the week passed with no message. No email. No thank you. But I noticed a few things. Vivian no longer sat back with crossed arms during meetings. She started taking detailed notes, asked sharp questions, and gave focused input. One afternoon, I stood outside the hallway, listening as she presented a revised budget strategy for an AI project that had gone over cost. Her voice was calm, clear. Her eyes no longer carried competitiveness, but something rarer, focus. I didn't walk in. I just stood there, hands in my pockets, and nodded silently. The following week, HR announced that Vivian had proposed a new internal sponsorship initiative for junior employees, especially female interns in tech roles. She recommended allocating a portion of the CSR budget to host a series of free career workshops led by department heads. I read the proposal 3 times. Slowly. Initiative. Name. Touch the screen. Touch the future. And right below it, in italics, inspired by the quiet mission of Eleanor Green, I set the file down on the table, pressing my lips together gently. That afternoon, I stopped by the pantry. As usual, Vivian was there, pouring hot water into a tea carafe. When she turned and saw me, we both froze for a second. But this time her gaze was softer. No tension. No defensiveness. I was about to pass when she suddenly spoke. The pen is beautiful. And the notebook I've written a few pages. I turned to her. I'm glad you liked it. She gave a small nod. I well think I ever really understood you. Or maybe I just never tried. I smiled without answering. There is something I want to say, she continued, voice lower. You didn't have to give me a chance. But you did. And you never brought any of it up? You didn't diminish me to prove a point. That says more about you than anything else ever could. For the first time, I no longer saw Vivian as the teenager basking in the spotlight with a trophy in hand. I saw a woman learning to let go of pride and truly see others. I don't know if I can make it right, she said slowly, but I'll try. I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my chest. We don't need to tally up the past. We just start from today. We stood side by side for a moment longer. No explanation needed. No apology required. Just a quiet understanding. This time things would be different. And somehow they were. Vivian stopped being the loudest person in the room. She learned to listen, gave space to younger voices, and didn't shy away from tasks she once thought beneath her. And I stopped hiding behind my screen. I began speaking at technical briefings, no longer dodging the camera. I stood before visiting students and shared my journey. Not to boast, but to show them, you don't have to be the loudest to make something big. One weekend afternoon, as I was leaving the office, I saw Vivian standing before the recognition wall. The list of top contributors for the quarter. Her name was at the top. She looked at me and gave a small nod. Thank you for not giving up on me. I smiled. We're just getting started. Vivian. On Sunday, the whole family gathered at our usual brunch spot on the corner of Green. Everything was just as it had always been. dark wood chairs, sunlight filtering through striped curtains, and the smell of warm waffles filling the room. But something in the air felt different. I sat at the long table on the balcony, joined by my parents, Uncle Henry, Aunt Laura, and Vivian. She arrived 5 minutes late. But instead of wearing her usual flashy outfit or sparkling heels, she had on a simple white blouse, stark jeans, her hair neatly tied back, no makeup. As she approached me, her eyes hesitated. But then she gave a small nod. I nodded back. No words needed. Just a look. That was enough. My mom was telling a story about her new flower bed when Uncle Henry suddenly chuckled and turned to me. "So, Eleanor, are you still doing that little freelance thing from home, or just typing up random computer codes all day?" I smiled. Not surprised. He still thought programming was just a souped-up video game. I didn't even have time to answer before a voice rang out. "Clearly," Uncle Vivian said, setting down her coffee and looking straight ahead. "Eleanor is the smartest person I've ever known. And without her, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today." All eyes turned to her. I tilted my head slightly. But Vivian didn't shrink back like she usually did when put in the spotlight. She stood firm, gaze steady, voice unwavering. "I used to think I knew everything," she continued. "But Eleanor taught me something more important than knowledge: humility. Her quietness doesn't mean she has nothing to say. It means she chooses to act instead of show off." Uncle Henry looked stunned, but Laura gave a subtle nod. My mother reached over and gently squeezed my hand. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. And in that look, I saw everything. Words couldn't express an unspoken apology. Unvoiced gratitude and respect. Earned not by blood, but by truth. Un moment later. The conversation shifted back to the weather and the upcoming holidays. But I knew something important had just happened. After the meal, as people began to leave the table, I stood up to grab my bag. Vivian stepped over. "Jacket in hand." She didn't say a word. But as she passed by, she whispered softly, "You don't have to forgive me, but I'll never be the same person again." I turned to her, and for the first time in a very long while, I gave her a genuine smile. "I know," I said, "and I never needed you to apologize." We walked out of the brunch spot in silence, but there was no longer any tension between us. What had happened wasn't forgotten, but it no longer lived in me like a wound. That afternoon, I went home, made myself a cup of tea, opened my laptop, and stared out the window toward Lake Union. Just as I took a sip of the warm tea, a message from Sam popped up. "Heard brunch wasn't half bad today," I replied. "Not bad. Let's call it a new beginning. And maybe sometimes forgiveness doesn't come through words. It comes when people finally see each other. Not through judgment, but through late, honest understanding." Vivian and I will never be picture-perfect sisters. But now we're no longer standing on opposite sides. We're two grown women who've learned from their own mistakes. And to me, that's a beautiful enough ending to one chapter and a gentle start to the next. The story between Vivian and me taught me that sometimes understanding doesn't come from grand apologies, but from quiet, genuine change. It took me years to accept that being seen isn't the only measure of worth. But when truth is finally acknowledged, no rebuttal is needed. Silence is enough to make people reflect. Real life doesn't ask for perfection, only the courage to grow and the grace to begin again. What do you think about Eleanor and Vivian's journey? Can a late understanding be enough to mend a relationship that once seemed broken? Share your thoughts. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt family stories.